Well, good morning, everybody, or good evening, or good afternoon, wherever in the beautiful world you are. Welcome to Aquarius Rising Africa. And I have with me again the lovely KERRI Saint. And as you can tell, I've got load shedding and the third hour now. So if I happen, my internet lasts for somewhere between 3 to 4 hours if I'm lucky. So if I happen to pop out, I'll come in on the hotspot. But just so that you guys know, this is where we're at right now. Apologies, but we get schedules in the morning now just to tell us, so we can't really plan. And they'll give you a schedule
Yes.
in the morning, and I will look at 6 o'clock, and it's a 2 hour cut, and then at 8 o'clock suddenly I look again, and it's a 4 hour cut. So fun and games we're having here. Anyway, very, very happy to have you back, KERRI, and to be talking about our topic, which is the Hollywood adoptions and the scandals that are
Yes.
involved with that, because this is obviously a big thing that's been going on. That I, for one, have always looked at and thought, why? Are they really just coming here to save poor African kids or third world country kids, which is what they oftentimes do, is they will adopt the darker skinned children. And
Yeah. Yes.
well, what I'm seeing with our lovely Charlize Theron transitioning her little boy into a girl
Yeah.
when he was 3.
Yeah.
Grace, I'd love to hear your take on that.
And good. So before we go any further, I noticed you actually have my Australian accent and not only the subjects that I'm bringing, but love my Australian accent. So I would like to say g'day to everybody that would like to hear a little bit about Aussie slang. So if you want to hear more, I will throw them out there for you. So the typical way, mate.
Yes,
how you going?
We'll say how's it. Right. We'll say how's it.
So I thought I might sit here with my Vegemite Lemingtons and King at one stage. So before we get on to Charlie,
I think we should have a party.
Yeah, so I just want to give a quick update because where I live, in the state I live, I've been lobbying hard around adoption I started in 1982 and been lobbying on lots of subjects. And one of them has been birth certificates, which I've talked about on this channel. Now, my state government decided to change birth certificates for diverse people transitioning and the more contemporary families. And so there's a bill going before Parliament to allow that to happen. And so if somebody transitions and they no longer want to be recognised as a male or female, they get text on their birth certificate. And if you become the child of a gay couple, you can have mum and mum on your birth certificate or dad. I don't know if you, and to me, no, that's not possible. One of those parents has to be the non-biological parent. And then so do they add the third person who's the biological parent, like the male and female? When saying that, it over the weekend, it was advertised on Facebook and the media will point out about how great this is. And my response immediately on a particular politician was to say it was hypocritical and discriminatory because adoptees have been lobbying for years and years so we can get our original birth certificate or integrated birth certificates. Up until this point, our government's saying to us, no changes can be made to a birth certificate. But all of a sudden, they've announced how exciting it is for this other group of people to have changes made. So I've had a very cranky week. And
I find,
formulating the truth.
It just shows me. Sorry, I know we have a bit of a lag here.
It just shows me. Sorry.
We've got an echo, Kerri. It just shows me again how corrupt the system has been, and how this whole new world order is taking over. Because, as you say, it's like this whole, now suddenly when you want to change your gender, now suddenly it's becoming an exciting thing. But for the adoptees, that's never been an option. Are they starting to change that for you guys now as well? Does that mean it's just for the, let's call it the gender fluid people? Or wow, shocking.
Yes. So I'll do to this bill, and I'm not opposing it. I'm opposing the fact that they are not giving the same rights to adopted people who had their identity stolen at birth. Like, I can't even get my biological father's name on my birth certificate. And even if I pay the $600 for a DNA test to prove he's my father, and I go through all the paperwork, like letters from my mother stating who he is, private letters from my father, stat decks, and just go through the whole process of proving who he is, it's still not a legal document because I'm adopted. I not use my original birth certificate. So
that's appalling.
It's so discriminatory.
Appalling. Yeah. Is that what you're fighting for right now?
Yeah.
So that,
and, that Sunday morning. Yes, yeah. So there's two ways we can do it, and there are to go back to with their original birth name that their mother gave them, with their father's. There, can you hear me okay?
I'm breaking up badly here, so I'm not sure if it's me or you. Okay, Mornay is just telling me it's your internet that's breaking.
Okay, all right. We might have to, I wonder if we have to go to my phone. All right, let's
sorry about this, guys. We clearly just having some internet issues here. We're just gonna, Kerri's just gonna swap over internet.
Okay, let's have a look. Sorry, everyone. If I go to my phone, we'll see what we can do. All right. So, I'll keep talking, and hopefully, so what we've asked for is original birth certificates, or what we call integrated birth certificates. And those integrated birth certificates will state your biological parents and your adoptive parent, the legal document is completely transparent. We don't understand why it's so hard when two other states in Australia have actually allowed it. So New South Wales and South Australia have allowed integrated birth certificates for adopted people.
Wow. What's your feeling on why they're not allowing it where you are?
So do you want me to... It doesn't get them votes. And we have to actually change the Adoption Act to do it. And currently, like, the review of the Adoption Act in Queensland, where I live, have been done, I think, 18 months ago, and it's been on hold. So it's like, it should have been done. And this is the one of the issues we could have addressed. And I don't understand why they're not doing it. I'm just completely frustrated. We had an inquiry this year gone into consent, because there was a lot of corruption around that. A lot of those children saying that they were angry enough that their father's names were not correct on birth certificates, and that they had false ID, felt exactly like us, exactly like adopted people. And we heard politicians stand up and speak on their behalf, very upset and empathetic towards donor conceived children not having their true identity. However, within the next breath, this same government is not allowing adopted people what they want to give people who, you know, what they call it, gender fluid people, diverse and transgender, all these rights. So I think more they do it because, you know, the way the narrative in which the world, they want to kind of control the world and the narrative and where they want to go was adopted people, and more their future. And I get the sense that their future is to continue to split more families up, diverse families, and pull children out of homes that you're not complying or fitting in to their new world order standard. So they will continue to rip you away from biological parents, or what they deem unfit parents for current society, give them to those that will play the game.
Yeah,
so they
absolutely.
will destroy their identity, these children. So they've never followed through. There are politicians who are adopted parents, so they will resist. Pro-adoption movement, and we'll get into some names like Deborah Furness and Hugh Jackman, is with Adopt Change. They've had a lot of people here in Australia come out lying just through their teeth and presenting their version of adoption, and New South So we had a little bit of a lag there. Would you like me to do that?
Your sound, I'm sorry, I'm really battling to hear you. So I'm wondering, yeah.
All right, okay. I'm just going to shut this down. I'm just going to go out of here, all right?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Much better, much better,
okay. I deeply apologise to everybody. I'll just give you a minute and I will set my phone up so everybody can hear me, because this is such an important subject.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want you just to maybe go back, please, a minute or two, because I'm sure we missed quite a bit there from you.
Okay, all right. So I put you up on a stand so I'm not looking down at you. All right, here we go. All right. Come on, stand up. Get my phone up. All right. Oh, goodness. How did I do this last time? Hang on. We're getting there. All right. Okay. See me now. All right. We good now? Sorting out problems. Yeah, you right? You seem to have frozen again. Are you there? Oh, what's happened? Where'd you go? So I don't know if you can hear me, Chantel. You seem to have frozen. Basically, yeah, we have adopted people who cannot have their birth certificates changed at all, and it's a real issue. So we're going to have to continue to fight. We're writing submissions as we speak, and we have to have them in by the 11th of January to confront the government on this issue as to why they
are not meeting our needs. I mean, adopted people had their birth certificates changed because many of us were stolen.
Kerri, your sound is gone. Guys, this is so crazy. What's happening here? Clearly a topic that they don't want us saying much about. So we apologize for the sound issues today. I was the one that had thinking I was going to be having the internet issues, which apparently I've now just changed my internet because I did have. And now Kerri's sound is gone. So I want to just give us a few minutes to see if she can come on, because as we're saying, this is a really important topic to talk about. I always believe that everybody, you know, when these sorts of things happen, there really are gremlins at play. Okay, Kerri's gone. So I'm going to give us a few minutes to talk about that. But in the meantime, what I'm going to maybe talk about is, you know, I've often mentioned Charlize Theron, who happens to be, you know, as you guys know, very well-known actress from South Africa who's won a few awards in Hollywood. And she recently, I do believe she adopted Jackson, who was a little South African boy, 10 years ago. Jackson must be 10 now.
Yeah.
And when he was 3, she then says he told her he was a girl. So from that moment, she transitioned him, and he's now a little girl, a 10-year-old little girl running around. I have serious questions around that, you know, how we understand how these things work. We're definitely going to be doing a deep dive into Charlize at some point in the new year. She's top of my list because the stories we've been told about her definitely don't fit the truth.
No.
So
I've got
carry on.
I've got a list. I've got a list of adoptive parents from Hollywood, and I was actually a bit shocked myself when I saw who was in there. So I'll read them out, and I'll tell you how many they've adopted. And what we'll do is later on we'll follow through with their story. You know, if there's something in there that's where, you know, that pricks our ears up, I'm going to pull it apart. So what I'll do is I'll present a bunch, and a lot of you may not be aware of these people who have adopted, but you'll actually see as I go through it, you'll see a link. All right. So there's Lionel Richie. Now, Lionel Richie, he adopted one of his bandmates' children. That was Nicole. Julie Andrews. Remember Julie Andrews? She adopted 2 children from Vietnam. Viola Davis. She adopted a girl. Now, she's just done that huge movie that's just come out. Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, they adopted 1 boy and 1 girl. And we know Madonna, she's adopted 4 children, but she's also got 2 biological children. She adopted 3 from Malawi. Meg Ryan, she adopted a daughter from China when she was 14 months old. Sandra Bullock, she adopted a boy. Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, of course, they adopted 3 children, 1 from Cambodia, Ethiopia, and Vietnam. Steven Spielberg adopted 2 children, and he has 7 biological children. Katherine Heigl, she adopted 2 children, one from Korea and one from the US. And of course, I've got Charlize Theron. She's adopted 2 children, a boy and a girl. Now, Emma Thompson, she adopted a boy. He was 16 years old when they adopted him. Diane Keaton, she's adopted 2 children, a boy and a girl. Michelle Pfeiffer, she adopted a daughter and has a bio son. Jamie Lee Curtis adopted a boy and a girl. Kirstie Alley adopted a boy and a girl. And Callista Flockhart, who married Harrison Ford, adopted a boy. And then we have Mia Farrow and Woody Allen, and she adopted 10 children. So that's a lot of high-profile names who have adopted.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this was just a short, quick go through. Like, if I start digging, there's going to be a heck of a lot more. But these are very well-known actors, and it blows my mind. What is wrong with Hollywood that they are adopting all these children? Is it because...
But not just that, have you actually noticed, I mean, there's recently been this whole thing with these fake pregnancies. Now, I have actually seen Beyonce, right? There's a live video clip of her actually going onto some talk show. And as she sits down, you can literally see her belly fold as if there was something. I mean, they are there. And I mean, Meghan Markle famously as well, when she's wearing that, I think the purple dress and the red jacket, the belly literally falls down. Yes. Now, I mean, we've done a lot of stuff like this, on our shows with Jessie Zabota, understanding that a lot of these celebrities, can't have children because they are actually transitioned already. Correct. From birth. I know that Nicole Kidman was actually transitioned in the womb by her father while she was still in the womb. She was a boy, and that's why she couldn't have kids. So all her outside exterior looks are all girly, but internally she has male parts. Yeah. So there's a lot of that, and there's a lot of rumors about the false pregnancies. And I mean, if you just look at Kim Kardashian, who famously nearly died having her first 2 children, but then gets a surrogate. So we're hearing more and more of this as well, is that these are using surrogates. My point is, why? And a lot of them, I mean, you look at John Travolta, for example, and big rumors about his son that was actually sacrifice, right? We hear about this all the time. Kanye West has recently come out speaking about the Hollywood sacrifices. I mean, that's more mainstream. I mean, we know this happens, but it's getting out there now, more mainstream.
But I saw a clip of Kanye West yesterday. He was walking the street. A lot of people followed him around and were asking him questions. And I thought it was fascinating, because who should he bring up in his conversation, which I brought up weeks ago, was Margaret Sanger. Yeah. Remember Margaret Sanger?
Yes,
and he's talking about the genocide of the black people and being involved in the KKK and all that. And my brain went, wow. Like, I thought, like, when you just think that, I brought it here to you guys first, and then Kanye's bringing it up in the essence of, he's dropping a few truth bombs. So you heard it first here on Africa Rising about Margaret Sanger and the lead.
And Kanye West is clearly picking up our breadcrumbs.
Well, that's what I reckon. So, and, I had never heard of her, but her name popped up somewhere. I don't know what I was reading or watching, and it just jumped out at me, and I really wanted to investigate Margaret Sanger, because the question has always been, where has adoption come from? How has it kind of morphed its way into society, and what has it been its greatest purpose? What have they really wanted from it? And so, I wanted to try and answer those problems, not just for others who are interested, but for my own self. Because, in Australia, we have the stolen generation, the Indigenous, and last year we had an inquiry, and they brought forward that they weren't going to create adoptions for Indigenous and Torres Strait Islanders because adoption is not a part of their culture. But they're happy to take children from non-Indigenous families, steal them from their non-Indigenous families and adopt them out because apparently adoption is a part of our culture. And I'm sitting there going, since when? Like, who decided? Like,
Wow.
So all of society, so that's what they said. The reason we take, non-Indigenous children from families is because it's a part of our culture. Well, excuse me, not a part of mine. It's
Wow.
not natural. It's not normal. And
Exactly. Who actually decided that at some point? I mean, to me as a child growing up, adoption was for children whose parents might have died or something like that. And they would then be taken by a family who loved them and cared for them. That was my understanding of what adoption was. It wasn't, it would happen if it needed to happen, right?
Yeah. Well, hold that space, because I think that's something that I would like to try and answer for everybody. And I'm going to have to go for a big, deep dive. And I really want to be able to bring the facts rather than just bring what I'm assuming to the table. So if people are really interested, I'm just going to keep digging and finding what I can, because I want to argue with the government that, who states it's part of our society and who states that it's good for us, because the people are living through it. It's not good for us at all to have our entire biological family wiped and no follow-up, no checks, no balances, and no accountability. How can this possibly be okay? Right? So, I found a couple, and which I was a little bit surprised about. There are three people that are actually adopted, and that is Marilyn Monroe was adopted. Have a think about that for a minute. She was adopted by a friend of a mother, but remained in foster care until her teens. And Debbie Harry, she was adopted a few months of age, and she spoke out about going through an identity crisis when she was aged 4, when she found out she was actually adopted. And Steve Jobs, the Apple computer guy, he was also an adoptee. And I want to look at those three in particular later on and pull apart their story and how they were affected by adoption. However, so what I'm going to bring you is Mia Farrow and Woody Allen. Later, no, the person I want to bring up for you right now is, I've lost my notes with all the carry on that we've been doing, is Joan Crawford. You know Joan Crawford? Extremely famous actress.
Yes.
And so Joan Crawford adopted 4 children, and her daughter, Christina Crawford, is an American author and actress, and best known for her 1978 memoir and expose called Mummy Dearest, which describes her abusive relationship with her adoptive mother, Joan. She was adopted as a baby from a baby broker from Nevada because Joan was formally denied an adoption by social services for being an unfit candidate in California in 1940. So,
what made her unfit, do we know?
Well, there's a bit of a, they're not real clear on it, but she had some mental health issues, that woman. I think she had drug and alcohol issues, but severe mental health issues. I've read the book, Mummy Dearest. I've watched the movie, and it's horrific. And it very much reminds me of the relationship that I had with my adoptive mother. Very just explosive, and comes from nowhere, a lot of this abuse, So Christina was 80 in 2019 and actually had an interview about her book, and there was a musical about it. Christina had no intentions of writing a memoir, although she had been through terrible abuses by Joan. They basically reconciled later in life. However, at the passing of Joan in 1977, at the reading of the will, both Christina and her brother Christopher were shocked to be cut out of the will. Crawford cited, she left a nice letter to the children stating, for reasons for which are well known to them, meaning to Christina and Christopher. Christina was so furious she went straight to her desk and started writing everything down that had actually happened in her childhood. The book sold more than 1 million copies, and it suffered enormous pushback from fans who admired Joan Crawford. Christina states it was gaslighting, pure and simple, and she wasn't surprised, stating she understood Hollywood. They were guilty of seeing and not saying. It was blame the messenger for bad news. She says she simply stuck to the message, and she said she knew the truth. Christina states that she was kicked, punched, and strangled, that familiar, by her adoptive mother, and was subjected to severe scheduling of cleaning and other household chores, which was driven by the movie star's alcoholism and who knows what else, Christina says, kind of alluding to that she had these severe mental health issues and probably abuse in her own childhood. It's interesting that Christina states that we didn't have a language for the abuse. And also we didn't have laws for it. We didn't have social context for it, but we had shame, a tremendous amount of shame coupled with fear. And I really love what Christina says about fear. She says, fear is the water that abused children swim in. Oh, it's just a really brilliant quote because
that is so profound, actually. I just felt that. I really felt it.
Yes.
Wow.
She says, because you do not know what is going to happen and your life is so chaotic, but it's also the fear from other people. Now, this is, I'm going to hit a punchline later on here. You're afraid to speak up, fear they are going to, the people who see it are fearful of losing their jobs or their status or, the relationship with Joan and what that brought. So she said housekeepers, secretaries, nannies and teachers were aware of what was happening, but all who knew never spoke up. Now, I've said this about my own abuse with my own adopted parents. After the book came out in 1978, stars of Crawford's vintage lined up to defend her, as did former members of our household. They all closed ranks. So here's this abused adopted child speaking up about what happened to her, and nobody's coming to her defense. At the age of 10, Christina states she was sent to boarding school where she started to understand that her adoptive mother's abuse wasn't normal. She began to understand a whole new set of rules. She tried to build a degree of self-esteem after years of being told by her adoptive mother that she was useless. Sound familiar? She tells about her fear of being sent away. Is that same little, if you don't comply, you're being sent away to a...
KERRI, you're disappearing and now you're coming back.
Oh,
your
goodness.
sound seems to be going a little bit muffly.
Okay, how's that?
Yeah, better.
Let's try that. All right, so she began to understand a whole new set of rules. She tried to build a degree of self-esteem after years of being told by her mother that she was useless. She tells about a fear of being sent away, of being incarcerated, and that grew out of the mother's constant threats to have her put away. She states she had a terror of being locked up. How could I not feel that fear, she said. So she never felt safe. So this is what she lived through. So her two siblings, there was 2 other siblings that disputed the book, which is basically not unusual in adoptive families. I've had it in mine. Family members often experience the parenting situation in different ways, and they often treat them differently. You'll often have favourites. And then you have other children who have memory blocks. Christopher, however, in spite of his desire for privacy, remained wholly supportive of Christine and telling of their story. And even at 80 years of age, Christina says that the fear doesn't go away when the abuser dies. She says it becomes internal. However, with time and work, it does lessen. If suggested in today's world, Joan would have been given a diagnosis, Christina fiercely indignant responds, she would have been put in jail. She would have been hauled off to jail for attempted murder. What is the excuse for that? There is no excuse. It doesn't matter what the issue is. So she's 80 years of age. And, you know, the reporter says, oh, well, today's adage, she probably would have been diagnosed. And Christina just loses it with her just about. Christina shares that we don't recognise the long-term psychological damage that this harm is inflicted on people who are abused, neglected, and she says trafficked. So she throws that in the sentence. And I find it interesting that all through this whole interview, the understanding the trauma of adoption alone is missing. It's about the abuse, because they state that this was the first documented case of an abused child. I say it's the first documented case of an abused adopted child.
Yes.
So I just find that the closing in on ranks of those is really typical around adoption. And that was a lot of the reasons why I didn't go public. Like it was absolute fear of speaking up and having, family members just close ranks. And it was also the fact that people saw, just like in Christina, they saw what happened, but they didn't intervene. So there were people who saw what happened to myself, but never intervened. And I've just talked about my government not wanting to meet me with birth certificates. They've never even wanted to intervene. They've never wanted to come to the party to apologise to adopted people like myself who were abused. So
I think you know what occurred to me earlier on when you were talking about the resistance to get the integrated birth certificates. Yep. I really think that has a lot to do with a lot of exposure. A lot of people will be exposed. I mean, if you're thinking about who's my biological father, who's my biological mother, a lot of that, a lot of, as you say, powerful people will be exposed through that exercise. And I think, to me, and of course, not just the people that will be exposed, but the heinousness of crimes that have been committed against mothers and children. And I can't disregard fathers. I'm sure there must have been many fathers as well who are pretty traumatized by this. But this whole thing about your child being ripped away from you, children being lied to, told their parents are dead, meanwhile they're not. The whole deception around that and the manipulation is really what needs to be exposed in these situations. And I'm glad that I so look forward to doing our series on Hollywood, because we need to, you see, these guys, we know how these Luciferians work. They're telling us all the time what they're doing, right? They have to. It's part of their religion, or they have to get consent. Our problem has been that we have not known how to read their symbolism. We have been so oblivious to that. So what we're doing right now is exposing the symbolism, like just recently the whole Balenciaga thing, and a lot more coming up. Again, Kanye West speaking up about stuff like that, seeing who the players are in these games, because of course they're not going to have models or celebrities like Kim Kardashian, Rihanna, Bella Hadid, and Nicole Kidman being their faces and their models, if these people themselves are not involved within the cult, right? Now, we want to know these women like Kim Kardashian, who has 4 children. I want to know what those children go through, and the ones that were the surrogates as well. You know what I'm saying? And I've no doubt that Joan Crawford herself was trafficked and abused and whatever. It's how she got to be the actress. It's what they would have groomed her for, right? It's the role that she had to play for the puppet master.
You know, if people are streaming, you know, Netflix or whatever, I'm sure they could find Mummy Dearest the movie. It comes from Christine herself, and they can go and have a look what it was like for these poor children raised by one of Hollywood's elite and most protected. And I want to say this very clearly. It's hard enough for adoptees to speak up about the abuse that occur in adoptive families because we're told we should be grateful. I mean, I was working in charcoal pits and lived in a shack, and people were telling me, you know, I don't deserve much better, and saying that I was ungrateful because I got food on my table and a roof over my head. Now, if you think about someone like Christina or anybody who's adopted into the Hollywood scene, imagine the enormity of trying to speak up when you seem to be look as if you've been given everything, right? Wealth, money, everything. But what if that's just a cover? Like, and Christina, obviously, you know, the life that she lived was so abusive that she was so driven and still affected at 80 years of age to write about what happened to her. So, you know, and I just know from my perspective, you know, being abused the way I was and how hard it was for me to speak out, I just think of the enormity of people who, you know, because all these, when you think about movie stars and they wear something like sunglasses or jewelry or clothing, whatever, everybody's got to go rush out and buy the latest fad. This is the reason we have so many people adopting that shouldn't, because they want to be seen to, you know, emulate their famous movie stars.
Absolutely.
So people go and have all sorts of things done to their bodies to emulate their movie stars. So it's like, oh, I see, you know, Madonna with adopted kids. So what will they do? They go out and try and find their own adopted kids so they can get the same sort of pat on the back and look at me and aren't I wonderful?
Absolutely.
So we're on this subject, like later on, like as we go through adoption and the impacts, I will be covering adoptive parents who murder. So when we get to that one, I've got some pretty horrific stories to pull out, and the crimes against children and families torn apart by adoption is just horrendous. It's just endless. I like. You know, I will never run out of material, unfortunately, you know. So I did mention Woody Allen and Mia Farrow. And
I was about to mention them too.
What was that? Yeah.
No, I was about to mention them too, because that's a famous one of, in my opinion, of complete abuse and just such a pervert, just making use of like a predator in a lamb's crawl type thing. I just think that is so disgusting, Woody Allen.
Do you know that Mia Farrow was worse than Woody Allen?
I believe that. No, I believe that. I always thought so. Right, tell me about it. I'd love to hear the details. Yeah.
Okay, so Mia Farrow was a very well-known actress. She was in movies like, which I just really suits the whole narrative here. She was the actress in Rosemary's Baby.
Yes.
And the Omen. So let's have a think about that for a minute. And Woody Allen was an actor and director since the 1960s. Now his films have grossed something like $575 million. So we're not talking about peanuts here with these guys. And with that amount of money comes enormous amount of influence. All right. So basically, I'm going to hone in on Moses Farrow, one of their children, because Moses has been the most outspoken. And he was born in Seoul, Korea. He had cerebral palsy, and he was adopted by both Mia and Woody. In 1992, Woody Allen sued for custody of Moses, who was called to submit written testimony at age 14, declared that he did not consider Woody his father anymore. So this would have been after Mia and Woody had split up. In subsequent media interviews, Moses told reporters that he was sure his youngest brother and sister do not want to go with him either. Mia Farrow was ultimately granted custody of Moses and attempted to have attempted to have the adoption of Moses annulled by Woody, though the court denied her request. So as an adult, Moses, however, reunited with Woody Allen and severed ties with Mia. In 2004, Moses then backflips and defends his adoptive father, rejecting public accusations made by his younger sister, Dylan Farrow, of sexual child abuse against Woody, saying, "I don't know if my sister really believes she was molested or is trying to please her mother. Pleasing my mother was a very powerful motivation because to be on a wrong side was horrible." In the same interview, he describes Mia as vengeful and his childhood being raised by her was horrifying and that she was physically abusive towards him. In 2018, he published a blog, so people can check it out, called A Son Speaks Out, in which he argued that Woody Allen's innocence, argued that Allen was actually innocent of the sexual abuse of his younger sister, accusing Mia Farrow of abuse and offered different versions of his childhood. So I've actually read some of his stuff. I am on Twitter, connected through Twitter with Moses, and Moses is actually a family therapist, trauma therapist, and educator, and talks about adoption. He's very vocal. Now, they adopted 10 children, and Mia had actually adopted, I think, a couple before he came along, before Woody came along. Now, there was Tam Farrow. She was adopted in 1992 from Vietnam at age 13, was blind. He died at the age of 21 of a heart condition. However, Moses claims that Tam had taken an overdose. Then there was Lark. He died of AIDS-related complications and struggled. Sorry, that's a lady. It's a girl. Lark died of AIDS-related complications and struggled with addiction. She died in poverty at the age of 35. Again, claiming that she committed suicide. And Thaddeus took his own life in 2016. So it's 3 children that committed suicide that were raised by these.
That were raised by Mia and Woody.
Yes.
So wow. Yes. And isn't it crazy? Because so often they will accuse these types of conditions on the DNA, the biology of the child. Oh, it must be in their DNA to be these things. They don't put it down to the adoptive situation.
No. Sun Yi, now this is the girl that she was actually adopted by Mia before Woody came along. And because Woody and her were only together for 12 years. And Sun Yi, she was born in Korea. She's the eldest daughter that was adopted by Mia before she married Woody. And also stated that Mia abused her. That Mia threw a large porcelain centerpiece at her head and missed and got a leg instead. And years later, as she got older, Sun Yi claims that Mia beat her with a telephone receiver. Sun Yi said her sister Lark and her were treated like house domestics and just had chores. Slaves. So she actually began a relationship with. they stated it started after Mia and Woody broke up, but you know, that's conjecture. Like, who really knows? They and basically they went on. So they got married when I think he was 61 and she was 26, and they had went on. Get this, they went on to adopt 2 daughters, Woody and Sun Yi. So it's just this revolving door of adopted children.
And
crazy
Mia
stuff.
Farrow, I remember Mia Farrow at the time feeling or coming across as the complete victim of Woody having had this affair with their adoptive daughter. You know, now we're hearing, because you know we know what happens. I mean, I think those of us who are on this platform know exactly what happens now with adoptions and stuff, and how these kids are taken and turned, and as you say, into slaves. I mean, and they are the more rich and more powerful they are, the more chance is that they serve the Dark Lord on some level. So will be, as you say, if not SRA, then just real Tom Sawyer type stuff, you know, treating them like slaves and stuff that you went through, you know.
I know, yes. And you know, like when I think about these children growing up under the spotlight of Hollywood with all its, you know, you can think of the people that are around these children. You know, when you think about the pedophiles and everything else, what are these children continually being exposed to? But if I remember rightly, because Moses he's written a book, and he shares how I think it was Thaddeus was in trouble for something and dragged into the bedroom, and he was made to strip and stand in that bedroom completely naked in front of all the other children and Mia. So I will put it out there. Do remember, so if you go into his blog site, he will clearly share the truths of what he grew up with. And I really love Moses in the fact that he's doing what very few do. He's speaking out as a victim by some very powerful people. And he's speaking up on behalf of his siblings who were abused and he believes took their own lives because of the trauma. So check him out. Check Moses Farrow out.
Wow. Well, maybe we can get him on the show, Kerri. Kerri, you've gone very quiet.
Look, I'll have a look into it. What's happening? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. I don't know what happened. I didn't move.
Yes.
It's being very temperamental tonight, both our ends, isn't it? So I just wonder sometimes, I don't think people like some of the subjects we bring up, because, you know, this is everyday goings on. This isn't kind of hidden underneath, you know, like satanic ritual abuse. This is everyday stuff that the government makes very normal. Adoption.
Exactly.
They make it very...
and very few people actually bothered to look beneath this rotten scene, you know. And I think it's so important to expose this, and definitely starting with these Hollywood couples is a good thing to do, because they are completely at the top of the food chain when it comes to this, you know. So I'm glad that we've been talking about these things, Kerri. And I really appreciate that. But I'm looking at our time, and we are pretty much out of time, unless if there's anything else you would just like to share or say before we wrap up today's show.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm going to hit on Hugh Jackman and Deborah Furness, I think, later on, because they've been very prolific here in Australia and having a great deal of influence. So I'd like to talk about them and the havoc they've been creating here in Australia, in ensuring that more children are moved.
So Hugh Jackman's not so nice after all.
No, look, he stands behind that woman, and I don't think she would have gotten much mileage out of adoption if she'd not been married to Hugh Jackman, right? So they adopted 2 children in the States because they weren't allowed to adopt here. And she got very vengeful in the fact that she didn't think that was right. Being an Australian citizen, she should have been allowed to adopt here. And she felt that she should get a child within 9 months, like in the gestational period, like any other woman. And so she came out with an agenda with a lot of money backing her to pull down our laws that were there to protect biological families and children. So New South Wales, one of our states here, has succumbed to the money and the pressure and whatever corruption that's been going on. So I'll share more about that next time if you like, because she's a bit of a bugbear with me. So
you're welcome to share the story now.
Oh, look, it's it's a bit detailed. I'd like to hold off for a bit because I really want to do it justice, in the impact that it's had on our laws here in Australia. And I believe there's influence in politics as well, and political players. So if you don't mind, I'd like to hold off for a little bit for that one because I believe it deserves more time. Are you there? They're frozen again. So, yep, keep on talking. So, I'm going to give it more time and speak about it a little bit later on. And hopefully by then we'll sort out some of these issues with our internet so we don't keep dropping out and losing each other. So anyway, I will leave it at that. Chantel, you've disappeared on me. It's been wonderful talking to you. I'm really pleased to bring this subject of adoption to everybody, and so we'll keep moseying along. You left me hanging out there, girlie.
Really, there's
it was you that disappeared, not me.
This is an interesting day,
So
but
I
think that maybe we should call it. Yeah. Okay, carry on. We've obviously got to land.
Yes. Yep. We'll sort it out next time.
All right.
Yeah, guys. Thank you.
Okay, guys. Thank you so much for watching us. Okay, guys. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for watching us, guys. I appreciate you being here today. I don't know what's happening with our sound, but Kerri and I seem to be talking over each other now. You can see we're having fun today with our video here. But we'll catch you next time with definitely more stuff on the adoption. So take care of yourself. Already, please give us a like, a share, and a subscribe. And we'll catch you next time. Take care, guys. God bless you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.